Alright everybody, I am talking to Penny. Now, Penny is one of the behind the scenes people that's pretty much, if you see all of this, and this is just one con, Penny has been one of the founding fathers, for a lack of a better phrase, been closely involved with this. Now, am I correct that you worked in TSR when you first started out?
Yes, old TSR.
I'm gonna get a little close so we can hear you. Why don't you give us a quick synopsis of what that was all about? Did you work with Gary Gygax? Did you know him?
Yes, actually I did.
Wow.
I first came to TSR in the early 80s, and I worked first as a games questions expert. I got to answer the incredible pile of mailed-in questions and emailed questions. Email wasn't so big in those days. It was mostly big stacks of paper.
Was that in the Dragon magazine, or was this for like the whole shebang kind of thing?
This was for all the games the company made, all of their incoming questions about any of the games. Some of them did make it into the Sage Advice column and the advice column in Polyhedron.
I remember reading those.
I would select questions that were especially good for those columns. But the rest of them, I answered myself. I would talk with all of the designers and the editors. I had free reign with them. To ask whatever I didn't know. And I was the rules expert for all the games.
Holy cow.
And then after that, after the first big upset, of which there are many in management at TSR, I moved into the head of the RPGA position.
Now what does that stand for?
Role-Playing Games Association.
Gotcha, okay.
Worldwide Role-Playing Game Club. And I stayed there until I left TSR. Built that up to, I can't remember what our membership was when I left, about 10,000 I think.
10,000, wow.
And built up the tournament program that we used at the time. And set up the systems, help people get into writing.
So you were involved in other aspects than the rules too.
Yes, our magazine that went out to all the members, Polyhedron, was an entirely volunteer effort as far as the contributors, and we would take their material, whatever they submitted, and polish it up, edit it, give it art, give it layout, and publish it for the membership. And a lot of people were able to break into writing that way. We were happy to help with that. And
holy cow, so that goes out into the novel aspects. There's tons of stories that have been written based on the D&D storylines, you know?
Yes, there was some fiction. It was usually more crunchy game articles though, such as Dragon or Dungeon would publish, except that they only took from professional authors. So it was a nice little bridge for people. And as head of the RPGA, I also worked pretty strongly with Gencon because of the tournament program. So we had a tournament program that reached out to all the conventions. Anyone could have a sanctioned tournament at the convention. We would have people write the tournaments, we would process them, we would distribute them, make sure that people got RPGA points for playing them. It was very exciting, and we had volunteers come into headquarters and work with us, so I was the den mother to all of the gamer volunteers.
It's such a huge grassroots level almost operation.
It really was. It was very satisfying to work with the individual gamers out there. And we would hold the members' meetings at the conventions. I did a lot of traveling and touring with that. To make sure that things went large and small. So it was a good time back in those days.
Now, you're still going to conventions nowadays. Why don't you tell people a little bit about what kind of stuff you're doing with the conventions at the present day?
Well, it's very different now. There was a long hiatus. I didn't go to conventions for about 15 years or so after I got out of the industry, which wasn't until I had jumped to a couple of other companies, actually. When I left TSR, I went with Gary Gygax to his new company, New Infinities Productions Incorporated, Nippon.
Wow.
And
pardon me, guys.
There were about 8 of us there at the start. Myself and Frank Menser, Kim Mohan, and Pamela Mohan, Gary and his wife, and a couple of others, Don Danovich and Karen. And we ran that company for a little while. Didn't live very long, but it was fun while it lasted. And from there, got out of the industry for a little while. Eventually, my husband Skip, who was with TSR at the time, Skip Williams, got the invite when TSR was bought out to move to Washington with Wizards of the Coast. So we went there to live, and about a year and a half later, got a job there as an editor.
Wow.
So moved up to managing editor eventually there, worked with the managing editor's office on pretty much the role-playing lines. I was line editor for the Marvel game, the Star Wars game, and eventually senior editor in the Dungeons & Dragons line.
All 3 of those have exploded too since then, essentially.
Yeah, they were a lot of fun to work on, and we enjoyed it there very much. Finally, we were laid off from there, moved back to Wisconsin, and have been very quiet since then. But the last couple of years, I've started coming to conventions again. This is my second Gencon in recent years, and I have been here on behalf of my own company, Crystal Unicorn Enterprises, which publishes an online community downloadable magazine, free to everyone.
Wow.
Very much in the lines of the old polyhedron, in that it is by and for volunteers, has an entirely volunteer staff, thus is published at somewhat irregular intervals.
Hey, well, you know, that's what comes with it.
Yes,
but that's awesome. I have seen it online, and it's got a very professional look. I've seen a lot of different online magazines, and it amazes me that the quality level is so high. Would you attribute that to being involved professionally with so many magazines and editing all the things you've edited?
I think so. Once again, we take all of our material as donations from volunteer authors, and we polish it up and work with the highest quality professionals that we can find for the editing and the art and the layout. Most of our volunteers have done those things professionally, either as a business or as a side business. So we work with the best that we can find. We are all volunteers, so that's how the irregular production schedule comes in. But
sure.
We don't want to put anything out that's not the highest possible quality. And once again, it's a way for people to get into writing for games and such. We have a column in our magazine called Apprentice Workshop that is specifically designed to give advice for people who are trying to break into the industry.
Oh, is that? That is extremely valuable, because you've been there. You've been in the trenches repeatedly.
Exactly.
Unbelievable. What a resource.
So you should find that at www.phoenixlore.com. And also our site has its own resident bard.
Tell us a little bit about Dan.
Dan the Bard. Dan the Bard is the music director for the Bristol Renaissance Fair, and a friend introduced us to him a few years ago as someone who wrote gaming songs.
He does the most incredible songs. Tell us a little bit about these songs, because these really sum up Dan well, I think.
Dan writes D&D songs to traditional Renaissance melodies, which is in the bardic tradition. In the ancient days, the 15th, 16th century, there were only a set number of melodies that everyone knew. So what bards would do was write their own lyrics to these melodies and use them over and over again. And that's what Dan does. He takes the same melodies and he writes D&D songs to them. Might change the tempo, the instrumentation. A lot of times the same melody will sound very different from one person's song to another. But it's very interesting. It's the old bardic tradition brought to life in D&D. He's just amazing. He's a gamer himself. And
a DM, I hear.
Oh yes. Very imaginative DM. I DM'd with him at a small convention in Illinois called CodCon. We ran an adventure written by myself and my husband Skip, set in a world that Anne's father had created when he wrote a novel 25 years ago.
Wow!
We dusted that off, and it had never been published, but we made a book out of it, which we hope to publish one of these days very soon.
Oh, is that cool?
And the setting will follow in its own time, but it's a science fantasy setting, Bronze Age with psychic powers and such.
Cool.
We did some D&D type setting 3.0 statistics. Ran it at the convention. He and I teamed up. It was a wonderful, wonderful time.
So that's a really interesting cross section. Where do you want to head right now, or are you really happy working with Phoenix Lore in building up these projects that you've been working with on the side, or is there something new you're planning on moving into possibly?
I am happy doing the things that we've been doing. I am a teacher these days, and starting
with ooey gooey stuff, I hear.
Yes, teaching
You're the
science.
fun kind of teacher. You do science, huh?
That's right, high school science.
That's awesome.
My other love. And I've always loved to teach. So I'm doing that, working with Phoenix Lore and with Dan. Dan is definitely a rising star.
Big time, yes.
He's gotten a lot of publicity at this convention, and we're there behind him every step of the way. And I also want to publish his father's novel and whatever other works that we can. Skip and I want to do some more novel work. We have two short stories in print in anthologies by Daw Books.
Wow.
And a third one on the way. So we have some fiction credits now, finally.
Excellent, excellent.
And
you're finally on the other side of the pen, so to speak.
Yes. I've also been talking with some of the game publishers here who I hope to do some freelance work for. I still like to edit. Personally, I like to edit better than I like to write. When I write, I like to write with a partner.
Ah, okay. Well, there's all different sorts of styles. Well, before we run out of time, any closing thoughts?
Just keep on gaming. That's really what it's all about.
That's what it's all about. Penny?
You can always play role-playing games, even if you don't have money.
Yep, that's the great thing.
You don't have anything but a 20-sided die, you can still play a game.
That's fantastic. Penny, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.